when he cooks or do that, clean, I go, oh, honey, thank you for washing the fish.
So many times you think that the touch can only happen during the sexual act and the union between that husband and wife. But the touch could be in the small thing, many boxes. But you never know what's inside until you do what? Open it. All right, and then hold up this, and you'll see that there are other boxes are inside. And men, we need to be romantic. Keep it real. Welcome to Keep It Real. Well, we are back. Dr. Keith Rolle, a.k.a. Dr. K, and
Lady Joy.
Sister Joy.
I prefer sister. Yeah.
Sister Joy Osweke Roll. Well, we were absent last week, and we want to thank Brian and Angelique for hosting last week with Emilian and Kim, and they talk about God's love letter. And when we saw that, man, we almost jumped out of our seat. Now, you can't take our job. You're just a co-host. So we think if you can flash them so that the people can see the Bartholomews, don't they look lovely?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. K.
Okay. Well, we want to thank everybody. Sister Joy and I, we were in Florida. My mom is critically ill. Yeah. She's still holding on, but it's only a matter of time. Our life is in God's hand. So if we're not on the set and the Bartholomews are there, we're in Florida to be with her. So we want to thank everybody who was praying, everybody who called. It meant so much to Lady Joy and I. And by the way, she cooked dinner for my family, and it was finger licking good. I don't know what the Colonel has on this woman right here. All right, so let's thank our sponsor, Dr. Batts. And Dr. Batts, there's his information up there, and you can contact him. He does a podcast weekly. He did episode 50 about health as we went into, it was a preview coming into the month of February where we read Red for women's health. And next week we'll be live. We'll bring a nurse practitioner on, and she's going to talk about some concerns. Well, today, episode number 53, this is African American Month. And we're going to give you the origin of how it started. It was only 1 week, and it was called the Negro History Week. And then it evolved to 1 month. We'll let you know the inventor of that, or the initiator, or the pioneer who started that. Proclamations have been given since 1976. Congress passed a law in 1986, that we will officially celebrate that. It doesn't matter what color you are. And you're from the Caribbean, you're from the South. I was born on the island of Bimini, where the late Dr. Miles Monroe said that that's where God lived, the sun, the sea, and the sand. And you were born on the motherland, the continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. Did you know I saw something that was on Facebook, and they had listed several African nations, and they said the most beautiful women on the continent of Africa, you would never believe what it is. Nigeria. And they said you all are so sophisticated, and I know that you make me look good with your beauty, sugar and spice, and everything nice. That's what girls are made out. Brian, I'm sorry, they said frogs and snails and puppy dog tails. That's what we're made of. But let's, before we give our title for the day, and before we give the history and a little trivia, just catch us up as to what was that experience like last week with the whites.
Oh man, Dr. K, first of all, thank you so much. It was absolutely amazing. I feel like there was so much information to share with our audience, so many nuggets, so many opportunities to give ways to learn, to increase your relationship together, whether in marriage or within yourself, by self-reflection. there is a love letter, and we all have access to that love letter. God provided that love letter and is the example of that in the Bible, right? By giving his son the ultimate sacrifice for each one of us. And the benefit to that is really all about, regardless of what we do, we have mercy and we have grace. Imagine that, whereas our love sometimes is conditional, but with God's love,
It's agape. Agape.
Right. So with that perspective, what we learned last week was really different ways, different expressions of that in our relationships, and how we can incorporate that love and rise to agape love.
Angelique, what was your takeaway from last week?
Essentially the same, Dr. K. It was a real blessing to have more than 50 years of marriage in the room, because between ourselves and Kim and Emilian, we have a total of 50 plus years marriage, which is unheard of these days. And just the overall tenure and experience, and us being able to take God's love letter and make it our couples or a union love letter to each other. How do we want to exemplify God's forgiveness in our marriage? How do we want to exemplify getting private time? All of those things really matter when it comes to a long-lasting relationship. And you and you and Sister Joy know about that. So we were taking the Word of God and His love letter to us, and we were making it a companion love letter.
Wow, that is so
how
apropos.
Can we do that?
And that is so great. Again, thank you for stepping in, and we're going to see more of them this year because she loves to travel, and I have to just I'm retired, but I have to go and get part-time jobs. So when we go to these exotic places, all she wants to do is say, honey, and then I go in my pocket and I say, bam, there it is. And I do believe that I bought this, and you say that I did not. But that's all right. If you can put our theme up, 53, our topic is going to be African American history. And then there's a tradition. We all have traditions, whether we believe it or not. And you do something for 6 weeks, it becomes a tradition. And therefore, and we've all made contributions, so there's a tribute. And therefore, Carter G. Woodson, he was born in 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. He was a sharecropper and a farmer. He died in 1950. He was a 20th century educator, historian, advocate, activist, and author of The Miseducation of the Negro in 1933. Now, we weren't allowed when the slaves came to read or write. But many of them, they did learn to read and write, and many of them created inventions. And I was reading something, it says that readers are leaders, and you all can chime in about this. If you want to keep something a secret, put it in the book. Many of us do not read, but I like to read. And I also like to go and search the internet. Now, not everything on the internet is correct and whatnot, but when you go to Wikipedia, I feel that's a good resource. And, I found out that this young man, he went, Carter G. Woodson, he went to high school at 20 years old. He didn't go because he had to work. And you're going to tell your story about your mom, how she got into husbandry and other things. But he obtained a PhD from Harvard, and it started in 1926, just a Negro History Week. It expanded in the 40s, and 86, like I said, Congress passed the law officially doing that. So here are some trivia. Who do you think was the first American killed in the Boston Massacre? You should have learned this in history.
Oh my God!
I have never.
Okay, this isn't live, so you cannot text or call in. It was Crispus Attucks. He was a black man. He was the first one. And then the first African American woman who was in the House of Representatives, and she ran for president. Who was that? You should know that.
I should know that.
Okay, it's Shirley Chisholm.
Shirley Chisholm.
All right.
She's also a melter.
All right.
Yes.
This African American discovered blood plasma.
Ooh,
That's not the hard.
It rhymes with do. It was Dr. Charles Drew. You should know this now. The first African American Supreme Court Justice.
Thurgood Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall. All right, you get a point. All right, we're going to ask one more. The first African to become president of South Africa.
Mandela.
Nelson
Nelson
Mandela.
Mandela.
All right, so that's the history, and that was a little bit of trivia. And then there were also, this is one I really want to ask, because we're going to talk about education, and we're going to talk about economics and industry. This person was the founder of Bethune-Cookman College in Florida.
Mary McLeod.
Mary McLeod, and this historic black economic was known as Black Wall Street.
Ooh,
Ooh, we should know that.
I should definitely know that.
Greenwood, there in Tulsa.
Yes, Greenwood.
I lived in
Greenwood.
Tulsa for some
Absolutely,
time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Angelique, you grew up in the South.
Mhm.
You said that, I don't know if your grandfather, he was white.
Yes.
My great-great-great-great-grandmother was white, half white. She had a white father. And Africa is the cradle of civilization.
Yes.
And so, can any good thing come out of Africa? Yes, you
Yeah.
came out of Africa.
Apart from it, so many good things.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start on Africa, because so many blacks, they don't want to have anything to do with Africa. So won't you tell us some of the fascinating things that are in Africa? In Nigeria, it's the 10th populated nation. It surpassed Japan, and then also they think that Africa is jungle, but the jungles are in Asia. So tell us about Africa, so maybe people would call us and they want to go with us when we go to Nigeria and Uganda this year.
To be honest, you don't miss what you don't have. I'm serious. Growing up in Nigeria was one of the best things that happened to me. As a young girl, what I loved was the community life we had. We can come back from school, your mother is not there, or your father is not there. You can go to one of your neighbor's house and they will feed you without any reservation. You don't have to cry for food. And I enjoy during the holidays, Christmas, we go to houses and they'll just platter food. That's how we learn how to start. We don't know how to give you one chicken, one breast. We just bring different dishes. So for me, growing up, I was looking forward to those festive times. My grandmother would go from my grandmother's house to my auntie's house to her mother's friends. Everybody welcomes you. Nobody say, "What are you here?" You don't have to call them. You don't have to tell them. You can just knock on the door. "Hey, Joy, how are you?" And here comes food. So growing up, and another thing was there was safety. It puzzles me when I hear about child
Abuse
and rape.
and
You
trafficking.
can trust your children to go anywhere, and there's safety. You don't have to worry. I never heard about any child being raped, any child being molested, and we are family oriented. If you're sick, we didn't know about nursing home. We didn't know about nursing home. If your mother is sick, the daughters, the sons, everybody takes care of them until they die. So we are family oriented and we love each other. There's so much love. I'm not talking about church. I'm talking about
Family.
the community.
The microcosm
The
of society.
We loved each other. If somebody is getting married, all your cousins will come, all your nephews will fly down. But the negative part about it now, growing up, is that, for example, I had a cousin that is sick. Everybody expects me to contribute money. So we have extended family love. We don't say, "Oh, this person is in the hospital." No. All the Wojis, all my cousins, everybody will chip in something to help.
All right, we are
So
family.
that's,
Family
family
is where
oriented.
life began and love never ends. Tell your story about your mother. It was fascinating.
I mean, for the most part, even directly correlating with what Sister Joy has said, I recently heard an interview about my aunt who was born during the Great Depression. My mother was born during World War II. But they too had their community. And my grandmother was a very ambitious, self-sufficient type of woman, along with my grandfather. And my grandfather, outside of my white grandfather, who my mother was born to, my grandmother remarried or got married and had a African American husband for the additional children that my grandmother had. So my mother was the outside child, but my grandmother never let that stop her. Everyone was of extreme dark skin, and my mother was the white, the white daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But she never took that on. It was just amazing to think about my mom during her time, you know, having her little sisters come with her at that time, you know, and they're in this, you know, deep, dark, rich skin, and my mom's hair is down her back and she's pale white. And she's, you know, holding their hands and doing hogs and raising chickens and everything. So even though my mother was very unique in the family, they never separated the family. The family was still the family, and you owned everybody. My mother loves to say, I never stepped on one of my children, so don't call me a stepchild. So they were like that. And my mother was a visionary with regard to entrepreneurship. She took on creating a grocery store with my father, and they bought a deep freezer even in the Great Depression. And as soon as they filled their freezer, they would invite the neighbors to pick up the rest of the farm products, or call them and say, hey, do y'all need any extra? We don't want this to sit out there and rot.
And I think that
community matters.
Yeah, and I think that's really something special about the African American community. You know, most ethnicities are tribal, but I remember growing up in the Caribbean. You grew up there as well as in Florida. Everybody, like you were saying, you can go to a neighbor house. I know there was one family, they had so many children, but the mom would fry chicken, and I kid you not, everybody ate off one chicken. Tell your experience in the Caribbean, and then we're going to find out who is your favorite African American historical or contemporary, and why.
Okay.
Well, my experience was a little different. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, and so I consider myself West Indian, but I was born in Brooklyn, New York. So my parents migrated when they were teenagers here to go to school, finish school, then they got married. And what's interesting is I was talking to my mom about her experience during that period of time, and what did she experience coming up here. And the first thing she said is, I didn't realize that I was black. You know, that wasn't something that being from the West Indies, you thought about. You know, everybody were people, again, the same common denominator, family, you know, community, and that's what we had. Didn't matter what skin color, you were just family. So with that experience, when she came to the United States, she started reading the paper. And that's how she became educated during that time with Martin Luther King and what was going on. That was around the time I was born. And she became very afraid. She was afraid because everything that was in the newspaper was negative about black people.
And,
right?
And we don't trust one another.
Exactly.
And
she had that fear.
And then, you know, it says in the Jewish community, money changes hand 13 times. I remember growing up, we had grocery stores that, like you said, your mom had, and we had credit where you couldn't pay until you got paid, and they trust you. And I really like that bond.
You actually wrote IOU on a strip of paper with your name. That's how my mom received payment from the neighbors.
And your word meant something. Your word was your bond, and a handshake. We didn't sign no legal documents and whatnot. I grew up, I was born on the island of Bimini, beautiful island. You've been there, 2 miles long and not even a mile wide. But yet still, I got my foundation, I got my formation, learned the fundamentals, as well as focus, as well as now here I am in the future. And so I praise God for that. Now, who is your favorite African or African American?
I don't know too many of them, you know.
Well, what about Africans? You know, you're from Africa.
I love Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, why?
He is a man of vision. Despite all odds, you know, he went through a lot, even going to prison. But he loved his people and served with all
servant leader.
Served with all his heart, gave all. Even when they accuse him, oh, I love Nelson.
27 years in prison on Robben Island.
Yes.
He squinched his eyes because of the limestones.
Oh my God.
Yet still he steps out and breaks apartheid and steps into to be president. Who is your favorite, historical or contemporary?
My favorite historical African American is definitely going to be Harriet Tubman,
Mm-hmm.
because of her vision to actually not only free herself, but to have the desire to go back
Abolitionist.
and establish the Underground Railroad and establish the opportunity for additional slaves to be brought to freedom and to run it like a business. She
Wow.
often pulled a gun on those that wanted to turn back.
Oh.
Because so I mean, I know that is, that's just the desire and the heart of, freedom for people, but to always reach back. And Harriet Tubman reminds
Wow.
me.
And she just really liberated so many out of slavery.
Absolutely.
And not only that, her life was in danger.
All the time.
And she was a leader.
All the time.
All right, Mr. B?
Well, for me, since Sister Joy said Nelson Mandela.
Well, you can have it
You
too.
guys say him,
No,
you
that's
guys-
okay.
you guys say him.
But I think it would have to be, Martin Luther King.
Okay.
I mean, he has made a significant impact in African American history and history overall. And it was around the time, when I was born,
Yes.
is when he was at the pinnacle, at the heights of things, and before he was, assassinated. So, for what he stood for and laying the groundwork for what we have today, I would definitely have to say that would be, Martin Luther King.
All right, and therefore, he was really thrust into that.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so many times when there could be a need, and you will be thrust into that to bring about a revolution. And let me say this, nothing changes without a revolution. So many people want change, but it says that only a baby in a dirty diaper. You wanted to say something.
One of my favorite quotes of Dr. King's is, it's always the right time to do the right thing.
Wow.
So you can always right a wrong, even when you know that you are facing those challenges. It's always the right time to do the right thing.
Wow. All
So
right.
That's powerful.
that's pretty
That
serious.
is all right. Do the right thing.
Do the right
Do the right
thing.
Spike Lee did a movie about
Yes.
do the
Yeah,
right
do the right
thing.
thing,
Back in
exactly.
the 70s and 80s. Boy, I was born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s and 70s, and that was the best genre. That was the best culture, the best music. Oh, you talking about some good music, Isley Brothers, Living for the Love of You. All right, fast forward to
I
now.
think people were passionate.
Right, they were.
People were real, and it was real
Real.
experiences,
That's
real
what people were real.
Okay.
expressions, real emotions, and it was a heightened time of awareness.
Well, my favorite was Booker T. Washington, born April 5th,
Bootstraps.
1856, died November 14, 1955. And it's been said about him that he lifted the veil of ignorance from his people and pointed them toward education and industry. And my great-great-great-grandfather was a missionary and an educator. That's what I'm doing. What we do in life is in our DNA.
It is.
Look at the Bartholomews, you in business. Look what you're doing, a servant leader. Your mom served the community. You'll fix food for the community before you fix food for me sometimes. But I don't hate and whatnot. But he was an educator, author, orator, activist, philosopher, founded Tuskegee Institute.
yes.
I've been to Tuskegee. He went to Hampton U. His grandfather, his father, his parents were Washington Ferguson, but he had a white father. And then his spouse, Margaret, he had 3 children, Booker T. Jr., Ernest, and Portia. And President Theodore Roosevelt and Taft called him as an advisor. He and he and W.D. Du Bois, they were at odds like Malcolm
And Martin.
but
W.E.B.
W.D.
Du
Du
Bois
Bois.
was at risk.
But look at that. They were both called like a railroad track.
yes.
You do your
Yes.
thing, I do my thing. Don't criticize me. All right?
Different philosophies.
All right. Moving forward, where do we go as a people?
You mean here in America? or
Yeah,
as Black
here or
African?
wherever you want to talk about Africa or here.
I know
30 minutes,
sometimes
30 seconds.
I see the difference between those that are from Nigeria, no, from African countries and Black Americans here. Sometimes you see people very angry and holding grudges, as if we sold them to slavery. But I'm just saying, hey, it's time to heal and love each other. Know that you are one body.
Okay.
What happened have happened. You can't take it back, but we need to love one another.
All right, Angelique.
I just firmly believe that the diaspora, meaning the African heritage, is truly returning to its roots. I believe that everything is returning to the motherland because of minerals, because of resources. Everything that was ever taken away is being restored to that land. And I think that we are really in the position as diaspora to really understand what that continent truly meant to us and our people and our future. So I think it's headed back there because the resources are going to come from that land.
All right, Brian, 30 seconds.
I think we need to educate ourselves as a people, who we are. We need to get to know each other and know ourselves better. Then we will have the confidence and realize, the possibilities and what we can do. I think that is the difference with people that come from outside of the U.S. and then African Americans that may have been born here and raised here. The people from outside have a different perspective and therefore have a little more energy and have more drive, and sometimes that's perceived in a negative way, but really it isn't. It's just they have the confidence, and more African Americans that are here in this country, as you said, Sister Joy, need to forgive, to release the things that have happened and unite and come together, work together, and get the confidence.
All right, well, we have some resources if you'll put up. So many people don't know that there was a black presence in the Bible. If you can put up those books, the black presence in the land of the Bible, Ethiopia, Nairobi, and all these other places. Queen of Sheba came, and then there were black soldiers in the Civil War. And then put up the other one. There were favorite African American women. Next month is Women's Month. We'll be talking to there's Harriet Tubman you were talking about. I can't give you this book because this is mine. And then there were great American inventors. Well, we want to thank you all for being your co-host, but your guest. And I want to read this about Booker T. Washington. If you could put up to Keep It Real, and then I'll close. We're wearing African outfit, and I wore the wrong color, so I'm wearing Brian's outfit. There it is. Keep It Real TV 49. Our telephone number, if you would like to be a sponsor next month, Women's Month. Angelique will be our sponsor. And we want to thank you in advance. And then Booker T. Washington said this: greatness is not about what you achieve in life, but rather what you must overcome in order to achieve it. So you need to know that the time has come for us as a people to open the gates of our soul, to go deep inside ourselves and loosen and break the chains that bind our rich and fertile minds. The time has come for our spirits to unfold so that our beauty, we ourselves, can behold. The time has come for the only revolution, the revolution that says freedom is within every man, woman, boy, and girl. We have but to affirm it when we understand. Then we can rise. I think it was Maya Angelou talking about then shall I rise, or whatever that poem was. A whole man, a whole woman, and then a whole nation. Well, we want to wish you the remainder of happy African American history. And you count, you have a presence, you made a contribution, and we celebrate you. On the count of 3, we're out of time, and we want you to 1, 2, 3, keep it real.